Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dugout. We have revamped the Dugout podcast. We are back. This is episode 17. I am now joined alongside Justin. No more Drew, just me and Justin for the time being. Justin, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be great for the audience since you're new onto this podcast.
Heck yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, my name's Justin. Favorite team is the Oakland Athletics. Unfortunately for me this year, that's been painful. So I've been happy to cover some other MLB teams that actually have something going on. Played baseball for a long period of time. Love the game, so I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. So today's topic is an interesting one. We are covering the 24 players lifetime banned by the MLB. Obviously, we've heard a lot about suspensions. There are a lot of players in the early 90s suspended for PEDs and whatnot. But lifetime bans, very rare. Only 24 lifetime bans were handed out for the MLB. We'll jump straight into it. The first one being the Black Sox scandal. So this involves 7 players. It involved Shoeless Joe Jackson, big name right there, Claude Lefty Williams, Charles Risberg, Eddie Cicotte, Arnold Gandil, George Weaver, Oscar Felsch, and Fred McCullen. So the Black Sox scandal, just to start it off, basically was on reports that players received $70,000 to lose the 1919 World Series against the Cincinnati Reds. And then basically the newly appointed commissioner came in soon after and banned all 7 players for life, which is crazy. Hammer down right as you get in the commissioner chair, you ban 7 players. Pretty wild. So I mean, another just a big gambling fiasco. But certainly, if you're playing in the World Series and guaranteeing yourself you're going to lose for that amount of money, especially back then, that's a lot of money back then.
That's a good chunk of change. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, and if Shoeless Joe Jackson, probably regarded as the one of, if not the best player at that time.
Right.
I mean, this is a classic one, dude. I mean, they've, made that movie, John Cusack, Charlie Sheen, they win a World Series. The owner gives them like a bottle of champagne and a slap on the butt and says, good job. So they had some motivation to do what they did, I guess. But yeah, classic.
So jumping right into the next one, closely linked to the Black Sox scandal was Joe Gedeon, I'm going to roll with. So he wasn't directly in the series, but he confessed to the White Sox owners that, it was fixed and that basically the gamblers came from St. Louis so that St. Louis would win the World Series. He's a good little player. Didn't play too much, but, career 292 batting average, not bad. But just another name into the Black Sox scandal. Not much to talk about there.
Yeah,
and we'll go back on to 15. Yeah, if you want to say something.
No, you're good. I was just saying, it's a while ago when he pivoted to playing for the Browns in the MLB because obviously that's been a team for a while.
100%. So then rolling on to number 15, another named link with the Black. I mean, this scandal went everywhere. It seems like
it's carrying the list right now.
Paulette. Yeah, exactly. Also involved in the Black Sox scandal. He was actually the first player out of all of them to be banned. Basically, he was, penalized with associating with the gamblers behind the game fixing and received gifts from the fixers themselves. So pretty sturdy ban, we would say there. Just this whole scandal, it got everyone. It was a big thing back then.
It's extensive. I mean, and these guys are, it's a small town. They probably grew up with the bookies or something, and people are just like, hey, you made it. Now I want my cut. So, yeah, they weren't getting paid very much back in that day, I'm sure.
All right, so on to the next one. Our first non-Black Sox scandal, but it did involve game fixing. This was before the Black Sox scandal. Basically, Jack O'Connor and Harry Howell, they try to bribe the official scorer to give Nap LaJoy an advantage over Ty Cobb. I don't know. It's hard to give yourself an advantage over Ty Cobb. I mean, definitely a top 10 player of all time. So I guess, pretty solid grounds to needing to cheat to have an advantage over Ty Cobb. But again, just the game fixing in the old days. There was pretty sketchy going on back then.
Pretty rampant back then, for sure. And especially bribing the official score. That's all these things are just so throwback in terms of how they did it, man. It's crazy.
Exactly. All right, so now we're on to 12 and 11. Jimmy O'Connell and Cozy Dolan. Great name.
Yeah.
So basically what they did was they tried to pay the other team to take it easy on them. Jimmy O'Connell and Cozy Dolan attempted to pay $500 to their opponent, the Philadelphia Phillies, Heine Sand. I'm assuming he was the pitcher, to give them an advantage that game for a win for whatever reason. And they were both banned permanently. So not too much backstory there. It'd be safe to assume perhaps they were betting on their own team, and they were maybe friends with Heine Sand, again, just a top tier name, and wanted put a little $500 investment into a bigger bet win. But this also, Judge Landis was just handing out bans left and right,
coming down.
This guy
he was not letting anything slide at all.
He is. I mean, he's up to what now? That's 2, 9, 10, 11. I think 11 bans so far.
I think he's covered almost every person on this list so far. He was not letting this stuff slide, which ultimately probably ended up being a good thing for baseball. But, man, he really came in there and cleaned it up, I guess.
Well, this next guy was also banned by Judge Landis, William Cox. He bet on his own team. As, the next person on this list we'll get to also used to bet on his own team. And obviously, Judge Landis not going to let this slide. Unacceptable in Judge Landis.
Not even for a minute.
He owned the Philadelphia Phillies. He wasn't a player. He was the first non-player to be banned by a commissioner in 1943. Cox went on record and said he had no idea about these rules, no idea that was illegal. So I guess we might have to give him the benefit of the doubt there. There's no explicit rule that said owners could not bet on their own team. Basically, he was the youngest owner in the league at that point when he purchased the Phillies. He bet on his team for at least 15 games, and Judge Landis couldn't let that slide. So
he wasn't going to let that slide.
Banned. They did let Cox sell the team to Bob Carpenter about the team after that, but yeah, I mean Judge Landis just really, really did not like the betting, which down the road in 2020 vision, hindsight, that might have been better for the current state of the league that we have now. So we might have to thank him for that, very early on.
Yeah, he was a common theme.
Down.
yeah, he probably shaped the way the league is now for sure.
We now have perhaps the biggest name on this list, perhaps one of the biggest names in baseball. Should be Hall of Famer, one of the best players to ever live. Pete Rose.
Charlie Hustle.
He was found guilty. Yep, he was found guilty, as everyone knows, on betting on his own team. He has been banned for baseball for life. He's not even allowed to go into a stadium. Never mind enter the Hall of Fame. He did write an appeal the other year to be allowed to be in the Hall of Fame, which hopefully someday he does, because regardless of if he bet on his own team or not, regardless of how scummy he might have been, one of the best baseball players to ever live. I'm sure there's a lot of shady guys in the Hall of Fame as it sits right now that just didn't get caught. So Bartlett Giamatti, the current commissioner in 1989, gave Pete Rose a lifetime ban. That brings up a good point, though. Is like, if you're Rob Manfred, right? Especially now in an era where betting is so big and such a big part of sports as a fan, and you inherit players that have been banned for life from the MLB by a different commissioner that had different viewpoints of the league and different values, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
how much do you consider unbanning this player, or do you or is it kind of just like a brotherhood of respect to say I can't because another commissioner banned you, so I can't touch you.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably for him something where he feels like he can't go against maybe the tradition of baseball in that regard. Unfortunately, I feel like ultimately, like if it were me, I think he deserves to be in there. I think enough time has passed, as you pointed out. It's a completely different time. You can gamble from your phone. It's totally different than back in the day. I think ultimately he'll probably end up
gamble in stadiums now. You can gamble in the Cincinnati Reds Stadium.
I'll tell you that. Yeah, I'm sure Manfred isn't necessarily disappointed at some of the revenue maybe that's coming in because of gambling. So I think in that regard, I don't know if it'll be him. I think ultimately down the line, maybe when it's a little bit more removed, maybe the commissioner after Manfred, he'll get in, which I think is sad. I think he should probably get in sooner, hopefully while he's still around. But
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, man, I mean, that guy, what he did, the way he played, I mean, he was a 3-time NL batting champion. I mean, it's
that's
hard
the thing.
to
Like
beat
outside of betting on your own team and whatnot, like what he brought to baseball and how much viewership he probably brought to baseball in his era, it feels like it can't, you can't repay that if you're a commissioner. Like you can't deny the fact that, like even with Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, those guys, during the steroid era, how much viewership that brought to baseball and how big baseball was. Like that's the peak of baseball. It probably won't ever be touched again, peak wise and viewership wise. Like that can never be repaid. So
100%.
Sure, like these guys bet on our team, maybe you consider them cheaters or whatnot, which is a whole different conversation. They gave so much to baseball, and regardless of if you view it as a commissioner wrong or not, it feels like you should have a fair chance at getting these luxuries, like being in the Hall of Fame, as other players are who probably didn't provide as much as they did themselves. I mean, there's Hall of Famers in the 1920s that, they didn't – the curveball wasn't invented in the 1920s. So these guys are playing baseball against plumbers, and they're, in the Hall of Fame. They did nothing really for baseball in the grand scheme of things. And you have these guys in the 90s all juiced up, Regardless if it's cheating or not, it was very big for baseball. It was a very good thing for baseball. I think what should happen, I just thought about this actually. So, like, if you're taking, the ballot writers that vote on the Hall of Fame, a lot of them, a lot of them are stuck in their old ways. A lot of them don't like the PDs. A lot of them don't like the gambling or whatnot. But put it to a vote. Put a pre-Hall of Fame vote in to have a vote to let him on the ballot. Like, put Pete Rose on a ballot that says, can he be in the Hall of Fame? Majority wins, put him on the ballot. Who cares? And then he'll probably find his way in. I think that's probably the right way to go about it.
And I think you're totally right, man. I think ultimately, I mean, I really almost feel like all those guys, to your point, like what they did for baseball, you look at Bonds and McGuire's careers, even before they kind of got to the point where they had added some mass, they were going to end up there anyways, really, it seems like. And, I think ultimately they'll end up in. And to your point, I mean, the Pete Rose idea is amazing. I think that's a great idea because I think even the old school sort of writers, and I think you'll see that with the Bonds and McGuire moving forward. As you start to get removed from that stuff, you look and say, hey, no matter what, the impact that these guys had on the game, like 1998, man, baseball was the sport, and nowadays it's still amazing and there's still such a fandom, but, front page of every paper was like McGuire, Sosa, tied at this, like, I'm getting goosebumps literally just saying that because I remember being young and watching that. And so ultimately, I think for Rose, I mean, it's hard to imagine, and I think it'd be a travesty if he didn't make it into the Hall of Fame ultimately. And I think it might take some time to get removed, unfortunately, for him to get there. But I hope it's still while he's around because I think he deserves that for the player that he was.
Yeah, I think the frustrating part about it, too, is like because we relate the gambling now in the gambling business to Pete Rose back then and how big it is for the game. I think for if we're looking at a steroid aspect, right, like a couple years ago when there was very clearly juice balls being used in the game. So it's like it's wrong when players do it, but when it's league sanctioned and, the league is doing it, the league is fixing it, it's fine. And like everything's okay. So when home run numbers were off the charts 2 years ago and it's this big blip of this in the past 20 years of average home run leaders, it's fine. But when there's, 4 big name players who are the greatest players to ever do it, it's not okay. So I think that's probably the most frustrating part about it.
100%.
And especially like Aaron Judge, like we're rolling in September. They were rolling in special balls for Aaron Judge to get the 62, and that wasn't happening when the records were set. But that's what they want now, and like because it's good for viewership, and that's exactly what steroids were, and it's exactly what Pete Rose was too. So I think it's a definite double standard when it's coming from the league compared to coming from the players.
Yeah, it seems very convenient when they want to utilize it and be like, oh, this is great. And then later on, even though it's probably untrue, they kind of throw their hands up like, the other owner that we mentioned. And it's like, I had no idea this was against the rules. What are you talking about here? So I hope it gets better. Unfortunately, I see that theme in all sports, and I think they might have to all wait a little bit of time. Fun fact, Giamatti. That's Paul Giamatti's dad, actually, the actor.
Oh, wow.
Which is so random to me. And then he died, and then
It is very random.
C-League took over as interim, and he never left, basically. So
I know.
Us here at the Dugout Podcast stay busy trying to keep up with all the latest scores and who might be going where this trade deadline. And with the busy fall season just around the corner, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days like us. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. With the end of the MLB season approaching quickly, you want to make sure you have all the extra time you can get to focus on whether your team will make the postseason this year. Keep your energy up with Lunch to Go, effortless, wholesome meals like grain bowls and salad toppers that are ready to eat when you're on the go. No microwave required. And if you're looking to take your diet game to all-star status, level up with Gourmet Plus options, prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time. Treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like broccolini, leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. Head to factormeals.com/dugout50 and use code dugout50 to get 50% off. That's code dugout50 at factormeals.com/dugout50 to get 50% off.
So moving on to number 8, we have Horace Fogel. It wasn't gambling this time for once, but he was publicly accused. He publicly accused the National League officials of giving the New York Giants an advantage. With the accusation, umpire William Brennan retaliated by slapping Fogel with a libel charge. After several hearings, Fogel was banned from the league. So the whistleblower gets banned. Kind of crazy.
It's a plot twist.
He was found guilty of 5 charges when his ban was announced. Brennan also dropped his charge against him, announcing that he was already satisfied with the penalty given to his counterpart. So a little bit of gray area here. We don't know what happened. A lot of looks like a he said, she said type thing. Fogel ended up staying close to baseball as a writer. In fact, he earned $10,000 for it. Fun fact. And then he went on to continue voicing his concerns and criticism against the game of baseball as a writer. But yeah, I mean, he's the one accusing, and they banned him. They wanted to hush him. So they
want to know more of it. Yeah, and you don't see a lot of horses nowadays, which is crazy. But yeah, they were we've had no part of this anymore.
But if you go off and ban the whistleblower is going to go off to a different place and blow the whistle, which he did. Clearly,
got some money for it. Yeah,
so
as he should have.
Yeah, you just got to give him some hush money, man. You just can't ban him outright. It's just going to piss him
off. Ended up working.
More.
Yeah, it didn't seem like I know that was a bold take. I mean, it doesn't really seem like it stick, but bold move.
All right, so now we're on to Lee McGee. Nice rhyming name. So after the Black Sox scandal, Lee McGee confessed to team president William Veek and the National League president John Hader for betting against his own team. So now these bans are scaring people and getting them to confess that they too are betting against their own team. And what does the league do? They also ban them for coming forward. Instead of keeping the scandal under wraps, McGee sued the Cubs for immediate termination of the contract that prevented him from getting his salary, which seems fair because got banned.
Totally fair.
I feel like you shouldn't be making your contract if you get banned from the league. And then once again, Judge Landis said, no, we're not doing that. We're not suing the team. Banned. Done. He's Judge Landis.
He had a busy couple of years.
Numbers.
Yeah, he had a busy couple of years here.
I wonder if he got commission on these bans. This is kind of crazy because
that'd be a plot twist.
Because if you come out and say, "Hey, I also did it. I hate to break it to you, I was doing it too."
Yeah,
I feel like you should get a little leeway for it because he got away with it, right? Like he could have said nothing. He could have gotten away with it, kept his money. No one would have known. No, good guy came to the league, said, I was betting on my own team. Cubs release him, went to go sue him, banned.
Lifetime ban is. I agree.
I feel like he should have gotten some. It's little extreme for coming out, and I mean, give him a plea deal, something like that.
One, you're not really incentivizing anybody else who might have cheated or gambled on their own team or whatever the case may be to really be honest. We already know.
They could have put him undercover too. So we won't ban you if you fish out some other names who also bet on their own team. No.
Yeah,
Straight
Judge
to the
Landis
ban.
was just obsessed with just you're
Straight
done.
to the ban.
But he could.
Well, it's kind of funny that
totally...
It's kind of funny his name was Judge, because he's
Yeah.
judge, jury, and executioner in these cases. He's just banning everybody. Number 6, we're on to Ray Fisher. He was also part of the 1919 World Series.
Who wasn't at this point?
He didn't get banned from that. That's not why he got banned. He was also part of that, but not the ban. He was handed a lifetime ban due to a contract dispute. Wow. Kind of weird. He was upset after inking a deal that forced him to take a pay cut. So he applied for a head coaching job, as any reasonable person would do. Not making enough money, you go look for another job. Judge Landis, once again, he said no.
He's back.
No,
nope.
You can't do that. You can't do that. Bam. You're not allowed to work another job if you have to take a pay cut.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's bold.
So
man.
Fisher said, "All right, whatever." He stayed at his head coaching job for the University of Michigan. Stayed there for 38 years. So ended up working out for him. But that's just you're forced to take a pay cut. So you look for another job to make some more money, and Judge Landis bans you.
He says, "No way, dude, not my house." I'm starting to think
like
you're right, man. I'm starting to think you're right. I think Landis was on the take, and I think he was just wanting everybody to say, "Wow, this guy's cleaning up the game, and he's pocketing some cash." Because it seems like he's just far too motivated to just get rid of anybody and everybody. Especially in this instance, it's not that crazy of a thing that he did, I don't think. But
there was no hearing or explanation either. He just got banned. That's it. He didn't
judge, jury, and executioner, like you said, man.
See, this is the thing. It's not like Ray Fisher did what Lee McGee did, wanting to go sue and say, why do I have a pay cut? That I'm forced to sign a pay cut, so I'm just going to go get another job. He didn't sue. Just went to go get another job. And Judge Landis said, no, banned. Done.
Which is crazy. I don't even know the grounds. But back in early 1900s, I don't know if you needed grounds to do anything. It seems like you didn't, because Landis is just going hard in the paint on all of these guys.
I guess not. So we got Phil Douglas. So Phil Douglas, New York Giants pitcher, 1922. He was handed a lifetime ban for a letter he wrote to his friend from the opposing team, Leslie Mann. Basically, Douglas, wanted to leave. He wanted to leave the Giants, and that he would leave for something worthwhile. So he was banned.
Understandable, yeah.
Which is probably considered now as tampering.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because they didn't really have free agency back then, so I wonder, it probably was on the hush hush. I don't even know how you'd go about if you didn't want to be there, a trade maybe. But yeah, a little bit of tampering. I'm curious to see where this goes, but the fact that he was ultimately banned since he's on this list for wanting a trade and writing a letter is classic Landis. I don't know if he was involved in this, but I'm assuming he was.
I'm interested to know who brought this to the attention of someone that could hand out a ban. Like, did his own friend, rat him out for this, or did? I think most likely his friend went to the GM and was like, "Hey, Phil Douglas might want to come play for us," and the GM said, "But then again, it's like, if you're the GM, like, you don't want to take that. You don't want to take a player
that seems
that wants to come play for you."
The guy had an ERA of 2.8. So, it's not like it was washed in any capacity, right? So you'd think if you're a GM, you're like, yeah, dude, let's do this. Unless, I would have to assume maybe it was the friend. Maybe the friend was looking for, a little something for reporting them, because I don't see how else it gets out. If you're the GM, you're thinking, all right, cool, man. Or the GM or the owner, they were cheap back then, as we've seen, man. So maybe they were like, we don't want to offer you anything, man. And they go back with that offer. And then he's like, well, I don't want to go. And they're like, all right, dude, peace. We'll tell Landis. You're out.
Definitely could have been. All right, so on to number 4. This was a big one. He was a very bright star with the Mets, as a youngster. Him and Juris Familia were a very good duo out of that Mets pen in the early 2010s. Jenry Mejia, another steroid guy. This one seems fair because he messed up a lot. Quite a lot. So he failed 3 PED tests in 1 year. In a single year. Come on.
I mean, come on, man. You're not even trying. You're not even trying at that point to not.
You can't even build a case. You can't be like, oh, you can't do what Tatis or Cano did and said, didn't know, my bad.
Yeah, I had a bad steak.
3 times in a year. You have to know. You have to.
I know, and you didn't even want to space it out. I mean, it's like to your point. And we had our earlier conversation, and with this, it's like I'm sorry, man. I think they probably made the right call here. 3 times in 1 year, you're not even trying. It doesn't even make sense.
Our article says he played in 14 games, but he had 28 saves. So I think that might have meant to say 144, perhaps. But regardless, did not play in many games in his 5-year career. Was instantly banned for failing 3 PED tests in a single year. Honestly, like I feel like it's more impressive that I feel like that's a more impressive feat, failing 3 in a year, than it is. Like if you did take PEDs and like tried to like hide it, like Manny did with he had the masking agents. Like I feel like that's more impressive to fail 3 times, because you have to try and fail. Like you have to have like a level of like don't give a fuck to try and fail 3 times in a single year.
1,000%, dude. I'm pretty sure even the MLB's like, hey man, we might be stopping by your house this Monday to drug test you, just FYI. And then he's like, nah, man, I'm good.
He 100% knew. He knew, because if you fail once, they're going to keep testing you. That's going to happen. And then even if after the second one, for a fact after the second one, they're not just 100% going to, they're 1,000,000% going to test you more than once too. But no, didn't matter.
They're going to be on your ass.
He just went. He did it again. I don't know why.
I don't know who was advising him, but that was, I don't know.
Yeah, well, whoever his agent probably needed to be fired.
I'm sure he was.
Moving on to number 3. Yeah. Moving on to number 3, we have a general manager this time, John Coppola. Basically broke international signing rules. It's a cardinal sin in the MLB, if you didn't know. He tried to cheat around the MLB rules regarding signing international prospects in the span of 3 years. First Manfred lifetime ban, gave him a lifetime ban. This also, penalized the Braves organization itself. So he didn't just screw himself over; he screwed up the whole organization. And then the players themselves had to become free agents, so they were no longer affiliated with the Braves. With the ban, they were just Manfred trying to make it seem like they were never on the Braves. Just said unrestricted free agent.
Erase it from history in some capacity.
Yeah, pretty crazy. I think it's crazy considering how good the Braves farm system is still, regardless of having these punishments.
It didn't really affect them. I mean, honestly, the Braves are doing just fine. They already got a title. Seems like they're on their way to potentially another one. You got to feel bad for kind of maybe the players, right? I mean, they kind of get their shot. Some of those international guys.
Because it's not their fault. This guy signed them, regardless if he signed them legally or not. He signed them, and now they don't have a job anymore. Which I'm sure most of them, like this guy, the top prospect, Kevin Maiton, I'm sure he got picked up fairly quickly, but
I've never heard of him.
I don't know if I agree with Manfred about that. I think that's got to stay. And then, you sanction them so they can't sign next couple years. So, whatever they signed more than they could have before, then it kind of evens out down the road. But I think releasing the players is little unfair, little harsh.
Too much, man. You're talking about some, especially internationally, some kids, this is their make it or break it for them and their whole family. So to penalize them seems a little unfair. But, I mean, Manfred wanted to maybe get some Landis going on it, looks like, potentially.
Yeah, well, moving on to number 2, we have another Landis. We have another Landis hammer, Judge Landis.
Doesn't surprise me.
Benny Koff was arrested for auto theft. So this has nothing to do with baseball. He robbed it. He stole a car.
He just didn't,
New York City acquitted him of the crime, so no big deal. New York City let him off. Fine.
Yep.
Judge Landis, though, no. Lifetime ban. Done.
Not in his league.
He doesn't let it fly. He didn't care. Didn't care he was acquitted. Banned him immediately for something outside of baseball. Again, pretty crazy. Judge Landis is he's on one. He's handing out bans left and right. I don't know if I agree with it. Maybe some stuff, maybe some off the field stuff. There's reason to ban.
I guess
I don't think
yeah.
something you get acquitted for. I don't think something you get acquitted for would be one of those reasons. But Judge Landis obviously doesn't care about that stuff.
Well, the law literally
seen.
said the law said we're good with it, but Judge Landis was like, I'm the law, so
Judge
I'm the
Landis
law and
is
I
the
make
law.
the rules. Yeah, he made that clear.
Exactly. Our last and probably craziest one, this resulted in prison time, not just an MLB ban, in prison time. Chris Correa, who's a scouting director for the Cardinals since 2009. He was discovered to be responsible for hacking into this Houston Astros database after an investigation by the FBI. He was banned by the MLB and also sentenced to 46 months in prison. Based on reports, he pleaded guilty to 5 criminal charges in relation to his hacking activities against the Houston Astros. And then the Cardinals also penalized. They were fined $2 million and forced to surrender 2 first-round draft picks. So again, another one singular person affecting the entire organization. This one resulting in jail time is wild to me. That's fun. It's crazy that you go that far to hack another team's database to look at players that you can also look at and make your own assumptions on.
You have all the same information. 46
and
months
go to jail.
Federal prison is not a short amount of time either. That's a good chunk of change, dude.
That's what I don't get here, right? Like, if you're this guy, you're at all the things that the Houston Astros scouts are at, or a different scout is at. You're there. Yeah. You have all these players. So if the Houston Astros say this player A is better than you might think he is, or better than player B, and you don't have that, and you have player B being better than player A, especially at this time. The Houston Astros are terrible in 2009. So it didn't really matter what they said.
Yeah, exactly.
You went to jail for that. That's what you wanted? You wanted to know what the Houston Astros thought about a different player, so you hacked their database.
You're the scouting director, right? So, just get different scouts, or go to the Cardinals and say, hey, I need these scouts from the Astros. I mean, you would assume, I don't know, man, I think maybe these guys kind of think they're invincible sometimes, but you have to assume maybe he kind of understood that it would get him in a little bit of trouble. But if I ever got a whiff of, oh, hey, if I do this, I might go to federal prison, I think I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm good, man. So this guy to move forward with it is, again, another bold move. This list is full of bold moves and stuff that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
If you're hacking the Houston Astros database, which I'm sure is fairly protected, any major sports team, I'm sure their databases are pretty well protected. If you're hacking their systems, you should probably be doing something different than being a scouting director for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, as the scouting director, the Cardinals were pretty good.
Yeah, dude, they're doing real good
in the 2000s.
Yeah,
they've been real good for a long time. So, did you really need to do that again to the worst team in the MLB? Back then, it wasn't even now. It's now it's who's the worst team? The A's, are the A's the worst team, or the Nationals? There's been
Royals
2, 3, maybe 4 at the bottom, the Tigers, A's, Nationals. Back then, it was the Astros standalone by themselves. Wasn't even close. Yeah. They were in the NL. They were in the bottom of the NL.
Yeah, this was NL Astros. Yeah,
and that's the team you wanted to hack? That's the team you wanted to go to prison for, to hack?
While your team is doing very good. And I would assume, I don't know this guy's background. If you're the scouting director, I would assume in some capacity maybe you got some scouting experience. If you came up within the organization, you got some pretty damn good players already, man. Maybe the pressure got to him, I don't know, but it just seems like overkill for something you did not need to do. I totally agree with you there for sure.
See, nowadays hacking the Astros would be worthwhile, but back then I don't see any reason why you need to hack the Astros back then. Well, that wraps up our list. That wraps up the 24. Would you want to say? Go for it.
Oh, you're good, man. I was just going to say, to your point, you get invited to all the same places the Astros are going. I don't think there's any secret.
Exactly. It didn't make any sense. The Astros aren't having separate things without you. That's the thing. Sure, they can invite players they want to privately work out, but you can invite the same player. You can see everything that they see. I don't get it.
It takes a lot less time than 46 months, too, for sure.
Well, that wraps up our 24 banned MLB players. Justin, what was your one, your biggest takeaway, and then 2, your favorite story out of these?
Biggest takeaway, to be to be honest with you, man, I don't think I heard Judge Landis's name until we did this.
Nope.
And now I'll never forget it. And I'm perpetually afraid of him,
No.
even though I'm sure he's not even around anymore.
No.
You know, the favorite, I kind of feel for the guy. The auto theft thing, I think for just comedic effect is kind of hilarious. Just because it's crazy.
Yeah,
that
especially as acquitted. And Judge Landis said no.
He said he laid the hammer down, man. Is that part of it just, feel for the guy. It seems like he probably would have been a pretty good ball player. But, I mean, that turn of events is tough, but kind of hilarious to me. What about you, man? What stuck out? What was your favorite?
I think I'm going to have to go with Judge Landis saying, no, you can't have a second job. You're not allowed to make money on the side. You are only allowed to play Major League Baseball my way. You're not allowed to do anything else. So you're banned.
That's a good one, man.
That's
crazy.
For me.
Yeah, 2023.
I mean, I learned a lot today.
Nowadays.
I learned a lot.
Same. So many names, by the way. Some top ball player names from back in the day, man. I kind of want to start a nickname for myself for Cozy. It won't stick and it won't happen, but man, that's a solid baseball player name right there.
I'm just scared of Judge Landis now. I mean, imagine a Judge Landis nowadays. Judge Landis would not let a lot of the stuff that happens in this league fly. If you backflip, banned.
Done. You're done.
You don't run around the bases in under 60 seconds, banned.
You're done, dude.
You requested a trade, banned.
Oh, you want to sign with another team?
Oh, all these pro athletes are like stream now. You're streaming, making money, banned.
Oh, you got a podcast? Okay, Mookie, you're done.
Banned.
He would not let anything.
I mean, what a guy.
Dude.
What a dickhead.
Nah, he was an asshole, but honestly, he lasted throughout time. So,
but again, as we mentioned earlier, he might have made the game better for us today. We never know.
He made this list more fun. I'll tell you that. At the very least,
he did. He really did. I think out of the 24, we saw maybe 2-3 that didn't involve Judge Landis. I think it was Familia, Correa, and Pete Rose, not Landis. Everyone else is Landis, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure Landis inspired all the other commissions to lay down the hammer like he did, man. That's what a guy.
Well, I think we should have known when the first thing he did getting the commissioner's chair was banning 7 players.
Yeah, that was and the fact, I think you brought this up earlier, his name is literally Judge Landis, and he was like, I'm going to let you know why my name is that name.
Exactly. All right, well, that wraps up episode 17. Justin, thank you for being on this pod. I'm excited to talk again next week, whatever topic we might cover. Maybe the trade deadline, we'll see. But that
could be fun.
Make sure to check us out on all platforms: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I don't know what we're on right now. We could be on we're on all podcast streaming platforms, whether that be Spotify, Apple Music, or whatnot. I don't know. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. We will catch you next